I'm going to try to give you a sense of what this disruption, what this digital disruption really means. And I was talking to Jerry last night. The word digital is a little bit like the old E word that we used to use for e-learning and e-everything back in the 2000s. It's becoming a little bit of a buzzword. So I'm going to try to give you some context of what it really means and what it means to the technology industry and a little bit about HR, but mostly about technology. The first thing is, I have this wonderful job right now as part of Deloitte, and I get a chance to meet with clients all over the world and talk to the heads of HR and business leaders. And every single company I talk to, whether it be a retailer, manufacturing, healthcare provider, financial services, it doesn't matter, basically says we're panicking about a business model disruption, a technology disruption, a competitor, somebody that's stepping on our space, and we're not sure what they're going to do. And so some work that Deloitte just did with MIT shows that 75 to 80% of CEOs are worried that something in the digital domain is going to change their business model or their operations. So this is not about efficiency and technology to make things faster. This is about their entire business. The other disruption that's going on is the disruption in the workforce. We happen to live in the United States in a very strange political time for those of you that follow what's going on over there. I won't make any political comments or Deloitte will yank me off the stage, but I will say that there is a change of ethos going on in the way people think about their jobs and what their jobs mean to them and what their relationship to you is. Part of that, of course, is that we will now have careers that will have multiple professions, multiple jobs, we'll have multiple employers, and many of us will work part-time and contractors for a significant amounts of our lives. And the organizations that we support, we're not set up for that. We're not set up for people coming and going and coming back. We're not set up for lots of contract cloud-based work. And the relationship between us and our employers is very different than ever before. And I think Jerry's research is really fascinating. It shows you how important it is for you to have a good relationship with even the people you don't hire and what a huge impact that has. So these are some of the disruptions taking place. And here in India, you're probably going through as much of it as anyone because you are now the fastest growing internet country in the world, according to Kleiner Perkins. And if you look at the disruptive companies that are out, the ones that are the iconic businesses that people want to follow, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, all the companies that everybody's trying to copy, Facebook and on, it isn't that they're good at technology. That is not the reason they're so good. It's the way they run the company. It's the people. It's how they organize themselves. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But being a disruptive organization or dealing with disruption is about how you manage the people in your company. It isn't just how you manage the technology. Uber, for example, is a decentralized company. There's decisions made in cities independent of San Francisco. Airbnb is the same way. It is not, there's no central structure to Airbnb. It's actually run by the actual partners themselves in different parts of the world. So there's some lessons to be learned by these digital disruptors that we can take in our businesses. Now, one of the projects that I get a chance to co-lead at Deloitte is this massive project called the Deloitte Human Capital Trends. And last year's report, which had about 7,000 companies respond, the most shocking finding, and I won't go through all these numbers, but the most shocking finding in this report is that 92% of the businesses that we surveyed, mostly large companies in more than 100 different countries, 92% of them said, we are not organized to succeed. We need to change the way we're organized. Yet only 14% said they thought they knew how to reorganize. So there's a big issue on how we actually get work done in a digital organization. If you work in a digital organization, if you are a startup, and I've obviously been in lots of startups, you know what it means to be digital. Everybody's working all the time and things are just happening, and you're working in teams. And what the research has shown is that the organizations of the future and the organizations that you need to become look like the picture on the right, not the picture on the left. And in fact, if you actually look at your company and look at what actually happens, even though your org chart looks like the picture on the left, the work is getting done like the picture on the right. And there's research that proves this. There's research that proves, there's a professor that has proven that we can only store about 100 relationships in our brain. The human brain can only really continue to maintain relationships with about 100 people. And so companies like W.L. Gore split their businesses into 100-person groups. That's why retail stores are not too big. That's why manufacturing plants are not too big. That's why a lot of organizations decentralize themselves into what are called fractal organizations. The question is, how do people interact, and how do they work together, and how do you share information? And what we've really learned is that's all about culture and shared values and communication technology and systems and people moving between the teams. The problem with this, from the standpoint of HR, and by the way, I've run through this research now with at least 50 companies, and every time I go through it, people go, yes, 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 that is the way we operate. None of the HR practices in most of the books you will read are designed for the company on the right. They're all designed for the company on the left. So most of the things that you do, most of the software you buy, was designed for the traditional hierarchical top-down driven organization, whether it be succession management, performance management, compensation, careers, the way learning takes place, the way information is transferred, the way decisions are made. So digital disruption, to a large degree, is figuring out how to operate in that world. One of the things that we've found from that research is that critical to that type of an organization is this idea of employee engagement. Now, employee engagement's a very old term, and it's got a little bit of baggage, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but let me tell you what we've learned about it. If you look at the engagement of an organization by a net promoter score, and if you go to Glassdoor, there's a question that they ask candidates, or they ask employees, would you recommend your company as a place to work? And it's pretty much a bell curve. You can see it's almost a perfect bell curve. And the average is about a C-. It's not super high. There's about the same number of companies that are great places to work as there are companies that aren't that great to work. And you've got to ask yourself, what is it about these companies on the right? How have they managed to create this environment that creates, very high levels of performance and engagement? Are those the tech companies in Silicon Valley? No. Are they small companies? No. Are they fast-growing companies? No. Are they new companies? No. I've looked at all the data. There is absolutely no pattern to those companies on the right. The only thing that's consistent about those companies is they have leadership and leaders that value and invest in and think about their people as the most important thing in their business. So you can be a high-performing digital organization. You don't have to be Google. You don't have to be Facebook. And I'm getting kind of tired of people copying what all the tech companies do anyway. Being a tech company isn't as much, working for a tech company isn't as much fun as you think it is. You can be an insurance company. You can be a mortgage broker. This is one of the nation's largest mortgage broker in the United States. It's called Quicken Loans. They are one of the best places to work in almost all the ratings. And they're in one of the most boring transactional businesses you could think of, issuing home mortgages. And so you can leverage some of the techniques of taking care of your people and being a highly engaged, highly digital organization yourself. Now, before I get into the impact of this on the technology in HR, let me add one more point. We've done a lot of research over the last 3 years on the impact of technology. And I've been in the technology world for about 35 years. I'm an engineer. I worked for IBM long ago. So I've seen lots of technology come and go. We are now in a stage of technology where my opinion is we have been sold addictive drugs. In fact, I'm a little bit disappointed that we spent 10 minutes of this conference learning how to use Twitter, to be honest. And by the way, these companies that are selling us these tools are very, very good at developing things that are addictive. That's what they do. They call it user engagement, but what they're really trying to do is get you hooked on their thing. And we're spending a lot of time on it. Deloitte did a study last year and found that in the United States, every day, 8 billion, every day in the United States, employees look at their phones 8 billion times, just in the United States. The question is, are we getting anything out of that? The answer is no. We're actually not. And if you look at economic data, and this is actually a really interesting topic about the future of work, which is another speech. I'll give this speech next year if you guys invite me back. This is a very profound challenge to the economists around the world. Economic productivity in this fourth industrial revolution, as it's called, is the lowest it has ever been. When we invented the steam engine, when we invented electricity, we invented indoor plumbing, every one of those inventions resulted in huge improvements in productivity. Since the beginning of the internet and the adoption of technology, productivity has not gone up significantly. And I think one of the reasons for that is we have not figured out how to adapt to all that technology. And I will, as I finish my talk here, I'm going to leave you with the challenge to make that part of your job. So let's talk a little bit about technology. And what has it done to us, and what is it doing to our industry, and what is it doing to HR? Well, my experience with technology, starting, my career before there was I started my career before there were even computers, actually. I used to work for IBM, and there was a steno pool, and people were typing on typewriters. We can't predict what technology will do. When the steam engine was invented, nobody could predict it would result in superhighways. When the telegraph was invented, nobody could have predicted it would result in the internet. When the word processor was invented, nobody could predict that it would result in the PC, this incredible multifunctional tool that we all use all the time. When the iPhone was predicted, could we ever have predicted the number of things we would be doing on these devices? I was down at Reliance on Tuesday, and we were talking about the Geo business, the new digital business they're building, and I said, you know what, I don't even know why we call these things phones anymore. The phone is the least important part of it. I don't even think it is a phone, something else. We don't know what the impact of wearable computing will be. We will probably be wearing computing fabric in the fabric of our clothes. I can't tell you what that's going to do. These smart badges, the third thing over there, that's a smart badge that you can buy off the shelf that listens to your voice at work and measures your level of stress while you're in a meeting. And that, I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. And you can use the data from that device to determine if a meeting is poorly managed, which is actually a really good idea. Actually, we've used that in Deloitte, Canada, and they use those devices to decide to reorganize and change the workplace in Deloitte, Canada, to bring more light into the office and change the way the offices were set up because people were unhappy the way the offices were set up. So that's a technology we can't predict. I would say we don't know what virtual reality is going to do, and now we have artificial intelligence. Do you know what the Amazon Echo is? The Amazon Echo listens to your voice at home all the time. By the way, the Amazon Echo is always on. It's listening to everything you're saying all the time. The National Security Agency of the United States is really excited about that. I know that for a fact. I've talked to some people about it. And they can interpret that data, and they can decide what you need to order and recommend things to buy. That technology exists today. And then I have no idea what Pokemon Go is going to do to our lives. Do you? I live in California. You walk down the street in California, and everybody's playing Pokemon Go everywhere you go. I don't get that one. So my point is that we don't know what all this is going to do. We can't assume it's going to make work better. It might just be something that's entertaining, and I think that's maybe a lot of what these things are, is entertainment. Our job in HR is to curate and make sense of that and use it productively in a way that improves the employee experience at work. That is really the most important new mandate you have. So now for the next couple of minutes, let me go through 5 or 6 of the disruptions that I think are very, very clearly taking place in the tech market, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of thoughts. The first is the ERPs. Everybody's been throwing away all their licensed software and buying cloud software from Oracle, SAP, Workday, Cornerstone, whoever it may be. I guess Cornerstone's not really an ERP. And there has been a massive amount of consolidation, talent management software, payroll software, HRMS, all going into these cloud systems. And they're wonderful companies. I know all of them. They're very, very well-run companies. They are very successful. They're making a lot of money. You're paying them a lot of money for their services. They are about to get disrupted. They are becoming, unfortunately, the legacy systems of the future. Now, I'm probably going to get shot by one of those companies for saying this, but they cannot adapt fast enough. So as you can see from the list of things going on in the world of technology, we are now shifting our platforms away from the cloud onto mobile. So the ERPs are going to be shifting with it. Now, if you look at the progression of the talent market, and this is a fairly complicated chart, but you can see where it's gone, there are a whole bunch of new things that people are trying to do with technology today. We're trying to measure engagement. We're trying to measure feedback. We're trying to do performance management in small teams. We're trying to build agile goal management systems. We're trying to do performance management and check-ins that take place every quarter. Those ERP technologies, many of them, were never designed for that. So there's a massive amount of change going on in the technology markets. And I think a lot of these vendors that we saw up earlier today, one of them will be the new success factors. I guarantee it. I don't know which one, but there will be another success factors. There will be another Workday that will come out of one of these small companies. And one of the reasons this has shifted is that the purpose of technology today is not just to automate things we already do on paper. It's to make the work experience better. And the vendors that can figure out how to make the work experience better for your employees are going to be the ones you're going to buy, and those are the ones those are the companies that are going to grow. Those are the companies that are going to have products that your employees are going to use. So that's number one. Number two, new generation of technology. There's I have this really interesting job where everybody who has an HR tech startup on the planet wants to talk to me. And it's really fascinating. I get to talk to most of them. And I can see another brand new breed of software being developed right before our eyes. Tools for constant employee feedback and mood management. Tools for wellness and health and work-life management. Work management tools. New forms of data-driven engagement tools. Tools that monitor the workplace. There's a whole new breed of applications out there being invented by creative people that are going to change what we can do in HR. And this is just a couple of those companies. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to see the world of engagement software, performance software, learning software, social recognition software, and work management software all start to come together. And I know vendors that are doing this right now. And imagine if you had something like that ran on your phone and was as easy and fun to use as Facebook or Twitter, how successful you would be in rolling out applications to your workforce. That's where I think this market is going. So that's number two. Number three, performance management. I would guess, I'm not going to bother asking you to raise your hands, but I would guess that 3/4 of you are questioning or redesigning your performance management process. And the reason for that is that we are in a period of time where the philosophy of management has changed, as I talked about in the very beginning. We want to build empowered, highly engaged teams. We want to coach and develop them. We want to let them create their own goals. We want to look at their goals and keep them aligned to other people. And we want to give them feedback every quarter, every month, not every year. All of those things are great management principles. You know what? There's no software designed for that. None of the performance management tools that we bought and built over the last 10 years were designed for that kind of process. So there is essentially a revolution of building new performance management taking place. This is a prototype of the performance management system developed by GE. GE's new performance management system is completely agile. IBM's, Deloitte's, most big companies are going through this re-engineering, and that is affecting the market in a big way because a lot of the vendors that build performance management tools were not designed for that. Number three, explosion of technology for culture and feedback. I wrote an article a couple of months ago, maybe about a year ago, called Feedback is the Killer App. Feedback is what everybody wants to make their organization successful. Why is this team successful? Why is this manager successful? Why isn't this team working with this team? Why did this product fail? Why are we having problems with this customer? Employees know. We just have to ask them. We just have to give them a tool so they can tell us why something in the organization isn't performing as well as it could. There's an army or an industry of new tools getting away from the once-a-year feedback and once-a-year performance process to a much more agile approach. So that's the next disruption, is all of these new technologies that are providing real-time continuous feedback, and by the way, not to you in HR, but directly to line management. So the data doesn't have to go through HR and get cleaned up and then sanitized back out to the organization. Number four, a new generation of learning tools. We have some of them out here. The way people learn has not changed, but the way we consume content has changed. And most companies, as you know, and I think a lot of you are probably in this situation, have a learning management system that was designed in probably the 1990s for the early days of technology-based learning, and now we want something that's a little bit more like YouTube on your phone for people to learn. And so there's a radical disruption going on in learning. In addition to that, by the way, your employees are now saying your employment brand is dependent on whether I can learn in your company. If I come to your company and I'm not going to be able to learn here and progress and improve my skills, I'm not going to like working here and I'm probably going to leave. So learning has become a strategic competitive advantage for your company, and the technologies of learning have radically changed. To say nothing of the fact that expert content is available all over the internet, and we still haven't built the right tools to figure out how to curate that and bring it together into your organization. Number 4, or number 6, I guess I lost track here, is analytics. Let me just give you 1 or 2 quick thoughts on analytics. I've been studying analytics as sort of an engineer for a long time, and I've been going to conferences on analytics, and typically there'd be a conference and there'd be 30 or 40 people in the room, and they were all very geeky people that had this little job in their company, and they were kind of working away on some analytics project, and nobody was really giving them any money, and they weren't really getting a lot of support, but they were doing great stuff. These days, it's completely changed. The maturity and investment in analytics and HR doubled in 2016 over 2015, so it has really, really exploded. We define analytics not as using HR data to measure HR, but rather using people-related data to improve the business, to improve sales, to improve productivity, to reduce fraud, to improve retention. That's what analytics is all about. And over the last 12 months, based on the data we collected, the maturity and growth rate and expertise and investment in analytics has really exploded around the world. So this is an enormous growth. Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough tools yet. We don't have enough off-the-shelf solutions. And this is an area where technology vendors are really investing heavily to build more off-the-shelf analytics. Just as an interesting sort of artifact of this, this is our maturity model on people analytics. And in 2015 to 2016, the percentage of companies that are trying to use data to predict something about their people almost doubled. So that's a pretty big growth rate in the level of expertise that we have in our departments on analytics. To say nothing of the fact that if you don't have an analytics function, you're not going to be able to do anything with all this wonderful data that's being collected by all those nifty new devices that your employees are bringing to work and using to do their work in their workplace. The final thing, let me wrap up with one final, probably the biggest transformational impact on HR that I believe probably changes your job and your career more than anything else, is the shift from designing processes to design thinking. Design thinking, and it's great that Esther has a whole session on design thinking here. Design thinking is the future of HR. Design thinking is not sitting around in a conference room with a whiteboard designing a process. Design thinking is studying the activities and workday lives of your employees, understanding what they do, and developing interactions and systems and tools in an iterative fashion to make their work better. That is the future of HR. Your job is going to be designing and building a great employee experience that is productive, engaging, high-performing, and useful to management. That is a different way of thinking about your job than buying a piece of software from a large vendor, figuring out how to implement it, and rolling it out. And I think that may be the most transformational and important thing to think about as the digital disruption takes place.
Thank you.